A dead CIA agent's memories, secrets, and skills are implanted into a death row inmate in hopes that he will complete the secret mission. Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is an action thriller from 2016 titled Criminal. The movie begins with Jericho Stewart standing on a beach, reminiscing about how the CIA had used him for their own selfish reasons. He turns to the person behind him, and a thought echoes in his mind. They hurt him, I'll hurt them worse. We are then taken back a few weeks, where Bill Pope, played by Ryan Reynolds, is a CIA spy in London. He stops at a store to collect a duffel bag full of cash, but answers a call from his daughter, Emma. Billy requests Emma to hand over the phone to his wife, Jill, who is portrayed by Gal Gadot. Bill teases Jill about what she is wearing and assures her that he will be home in time for dinner. At that moment, Bill spots his target and follows him onto a bus. Once inside, he places a tracker in the target's wallet before leaving the bus. Billy picks up a bike from the parking lot and uses it to follow the bus. His boss, Quaker Wells, and other CIA agents, Marta Lynch, Ruiza, and Greensleeves, observe Billy's actions closely. We soon find out that Heimdall, a good CIA turned bad cop, and his right-hand woman, Elsa, are after Billy. After a while, Billy gets into a taxi and asks the man to take him to a cement factory, where he has tracked the man. The driver stops in front of a deserted facility, but Billy asks him to turn around because it's not a cement factory. But before the driver could react, he was gunned down. Billy manages to duck in time to avoid another bullet, before stepping out of the car and firing some shots of his own. Unfortunately, Billy gets hit by one of his attackers, but he hides in a corner of the building. Billy sends a message to Martha to inform the CIA that he's surrounded by the bad guys. Martha informs Wells about this, and Wells asks other agents to track Billy's phone. But despite their efforts, Elsa is able to pinpoint Billy's location and informs Heimdall. They capture Billy and torture him, demanding information about the Dutchman, a hacker who has created a wormhole that would allow Heimdall to bypass computer coders and hack into federal computers. Billy refuses to reveal any information, which infuriates Heimdall. He ultimately kills Billy by sending electric waves through his mouth. The CIA arrives on the scene a few moments later, only to find that Billy has died. However, they decide to contact Dr. Franks, a scientist who has been working on a memory program that allows individuals to access the memories of a deceased person. Before Billy died, he was in negotiations with the Dutchman to sell the program to him, so the CIA plans to transfer Billy's memories to another person to help track down the Dutchman. Wells gives Dr. Frank an ultimatum. He has 48 hours to make a program work that is related to national security of the highest order. Frank agrees to the conditions and they strike a deal. They decide to transfer Billy's memories to a man named Jericho, but they have reservations about it because Jericho is a killer with no remorse. Rather than discussing their plans with Jericho or trying to make a deal with him, they shoot him with a tranquilizer gun and take him to the lab. At the lab, they ask Jericho if he had any issues with drugs from previous surgeries, which he denies having any. Suddenly, Jericho realizes that they are planning to use him as a lab rat. He struggles against his restraints, but they hold him down. Before the start of the surgery, Dr. Frank asks Jericho if he knows why his frontal lobes are underdeveloped, and he reveals that his father threw him out of the car when he was much younger. After his mother said that he wasn't his son, he hit his head on the road, and since then, his brain stopped functioning properly. Dr. Frank promised to take good care of him and gave Jericho a sedative. A scientist told Martha and Wells that Jericho was a perfect match for the operation because he had no frontal lobes, which is a rare condition that only 1 in a million people experience. Martha felt sympathy for Billy's wife Jill and wondered what would become of her, but Wells decided not to tell her about the operation. Later, Wells, Martha, and other agents watched a live conversation between Heimdall and Pierce Morgan. Heimdall revealed that he planned to find the Dutchman and use his program to destroy the government and all world powers because he believed the world would be better off without them. Meanwhile, Dr. Frank completed Jericho's surgery and asked Wells to give him some time to rest. Wells asked everyone except the doctor to leave, but Dr. Frank tried to convince Wells to give Jericho some time to recover from the major brain surgery. The CIA, however, wanted answers and ignored Dr. Frank and Jericho's pleas for a pain reliever. Wells asked Jericho to remember how he had stopped him from killing the Dutchman and reminded him that he had come up with the answer to strike a deal with him. Wells asks Jericho about the location of the money and the Dutchman, but Jericho responds rudely and claims not to remember anything. However, he does remember but denies it after realizing that there is a bag of money somewhere out there. Wells becomes angry and leaves the room, instructing his men to clean up the mess. Later, Wells and the other agents watch a video message from Stroop. In the message, Stroop offers to sell his program to the CIA in exchange for money and security. Meanwhile, Stroop makes his way to a payphone where he tries to contact Billy. However, Jill, who answers the phone, tearfully informs him that her husband is dead. Stroop hangs up in frustration, leaving Jill worried about who the unknown caller was. After regaining his strength, Jericho is seen leaving the lab with CIA agents who plan to question him until he regains Billy's memories. But the doctor stops them and asks for a minute with him. Surprisingly, the doctor is nice to Jericho and even gives him medication to relieve his pain. Jericho asks if he'll be released, but the doctor wishes him good luck, ignoring the question, knowing quite well that the CIA won't release him after they just transferred valuable information to his brain. While being escorted by 2 agents to an undisclosed location, Jericho manages to injure one of the agents with a homemade hook, causing the vehicle to crash, allowing him to escape. But before leaving, he noticed that gas was leaking on the floor and dropped his cigarette on it. This caused the cars to explode, making it appear as though he had died in the crash. Later, Jericho goes to a nearby town and takes someone else's order without paying. He then steps outside and violently beats a man before taking off in their van, while listening to an upbeat song, enjoying his freedom after so many years. His memories come back to him quickly, causing him to stop the van and cry out in pain. Suddenly, he recalls the location of a duffel bag and drives to Billy's house. There, he throws a shoe in the opposite direction to avoid detection by security cameras. Jericho enters the Pope's house and ties Jill to her bed. However, he sees a photo of Jill and her husband by the bedside, which triggers his memories and reminds him of Billy's time with Jill. He discovers that the money bag is hidden behind a stack of George Orwell books. Jericho takes Jill's credit card and Emma's hairbrush, among other valuable items, before leaving. He also tells her the previous PIN, which is 6,969. Jill is surprised that he knows the password to Billy's credit card, which she never told him. But Jericho searches for the missing bag in another room. As Jericho was going around the house collecting valuable items, Jill managed to activate the silent alarm near her bed. However, when the phone rang, Jericho answered it and gave the correct password to the person on the other end by his name, deactivating the alarm. He even requested to change the password. Meanwhile, Jill managed to loosen her bonds and went to her daughter Emma's room. She tried to lock them in the room by blocking the door with heavy furniture. Emma saw her mother enter in panic and asked if there was a stranger in the house. Jericho heard the sounds and realized that she had escaped. He headed toward the bedrooms, where he saw more family pictures that triggered memories of Billy's past. Later on, Ian Stroop has a video call with his boss and confesses that he is the Dutchman. He plans on selling his program to the Russians because he believes the CIA has betrayed him and wants to kill him. He has asked for all-round protection, a Russian passport, and $10 million. He gave the CIA a deadline of 9 hours to respond, adding it was not about the money, but his freedom. Jericho's actions have severe consequences when the CIA discovers that he was the intruder in Billy's house. The agency connected the dots and realized that Jericho had Billy's memories, as he remembered the alarm codes and even recognized a voice on the phone. When the CIA conducted DNA tests on the car crash victims, they discovered that the first 2 passengers were agents, but the 3rd passenger was a random person whom Jericho had chosen and put in the car. Now that Wells knows that Jericho has Billy's memories, he orders the agents to find and track him down. After Jericho returns to the streets, he takes Emma's brush to a pawn shop. However, he remembers Billy's memories and how much he loved his daughter. He collects the brush back from the pawn shop and leaves. Jericho's behavior starts to resemble Billy's as he switches back and forth between being Bill and himself. When Jericho goes to order a drink, he orders it in French instead of Spanish. Someone corrects him and taunts him, leading Jericho to break the man's nose. Jericho visits the library, where he uses Billy's codes to log into the computer. The CIA learns about this. For some reason, he also acquires Billy's hacking skills and removes the tracker they've put on his phone. Jericho is experiencing headaches due to his constant recollection of Billy's memories. He locates Dr. Frank seeking help to obtain medicine, unaware that the CIA is already tracking Frank's location. Jericho complains about the emotional turmoil he's experiencing due to his ability to feel things. He also admits to visiting Billy's house, but refraining from touching Jill or doing anything to his daughter because Billy wouldn't want to. Despite the challenges, Jericho acknowledges the benefits of having Billy's memories. He can now speak different languages and do complex math, which he couldn't do before. Together, they go to a nearby pharmacy. After the woman at the counter gives Jericho his drugs, he walks out of the pharmacy. Surprisingly, he returns to the cashier and tries to pay her. However, his plans are interrupted when 3 CIA agents arrest him as soon as he steps out. Jericho recognizes Eliezer and reminds him of the 20 pounds of arsenal he still owes Billy. Eliezer looks at him in shock, trying to figure out what else he might remember, demanding to know the whereabouts of the Dutchman. Jericho doesn't break, so they rough him up and put him in the car. Meanwhile, Elsa, Heimdall's right-hand woman, watches from afar as the agents take him away. Wells contacts the doctor to get an update on Jericho's condition and to find out what he knows that may help them locate the Dutchman. The doctor informs Wells that they are dealing with Jericho himself, who is also influenced by Billy's memories, skills, and routines. Jericho talks about a bag of money that motivates him for his future plans, so the doctor suggests offering him the money for his help. He advises Wells to take Jericho to the last place Billy was with the Dutchman, thinking it might help trigger more memories so they can follow the trail. Meanwhile, another agent interrupts them with an urgent message that the Dutchman is trying to cut a deal with the Russians. Back at the CIA headquarters, only 3 hours are left until the Dutchman's deadline. Wells enters the interrogation room, where Jericho is being shown images of Billy Pope's past, hoping to activate a helpful memory. While questioning Jericho about the Dutchman's whereabouts, Wells offers the bag of money Jericho is searching for as a reward if he helps them in any way. However, Jericho grabs Wells by the neck, demands money, and insists that he be taken to the beach where the image pauses with Billy's wife in it. In the meantime, Heimdall manages to shift the CIA's attention away from Stroop by falsely creating an impression that he was seen at an airport. This diverts their attention by forcing Wells and his men to speed toward the airport. Meanwhile, Elsa and Heimdall's henchmen find the agents who were traveling with Jericho and ambush them with a hail of bullets, resulting in the death of some of the agents, including Lynch. During the chaos, Jericho grabs an agent's gun and fights back until he realizes that they are outnumbered. He then jumps into another vehicle and drives off the bridge, falling into the river while trying to avoid the bullets. As Jericho tries to get out of the river, he sustains an injury on his leg. He sneaks into Billy's basement to treat his wounds and is discovered by Jill, who points a gun at him. However, Jericho doesn't resist and instead reveals that he has Billy's memories. He recounts a story that only she and Billy would know, about how their first car smelled like fish and chips and how the engine gave out after a week. Touched by this revelation, Jill breaks down in tears. Jericho assures her that Billy could never hurt her, and neither can he. The scene shifts to the coast of Portugal, where the Dutchman hacks a submerged submarine. He surprises the crew by firing a ballistic missile, causing panic among them. The crew is in shock as they try to self-destruct the missile before it reaches its destination. Fortunately, a few moments later, the missile self-terminates in the air. The crew is stunned when they learn that they didn't terminate the missile. Later, at Billy's house, Jericho and Jill continue sharing stories from their past to validate their memories. During that time, Jericho has a flashback of a library where Jill went to the university and realizes this is where the bag of money lies and any clue that they have been searching for all along. He leaves for the library, but after he leaves, Elsa breaks into Billy's house and takes Jill and Emma hostage. Jericho finds what he's looking for at the library, but upon leaving, Heimdall greets him as if he was expecting him there. Jericho is electrocuted, becomes unconscious, and is taken to join Jill and Emma. There, Heimdall threatens to kill Billy's family if he doesn't tell him the location of the Dutchman. At the same time, Wells and his team are tailing the Russians, hoping they will lead them to the Dutchman. As they get closer, one of the agents notices Heimdall and his men escorting Jericho, most likely to the same location. They split up to go after Jericho, while the rest go after the Russians. A massive shootout breaks out, causing chaos in the area. Jericho tricks them by taking them to a lab where the Dutchman is supposedly hiding. Inside the lab, he creates a big explosion and manages to escape. Jericho successfully tracks down Ian Stroop, also known as the Dutchman. He intends to complete the deal he had made with Billy Pope by handing over the money and passport in exchange for the flash drive. However, unbeknownst to them, Elsa, who had survived the lab explosion, enters the room and shoots Jericho in the shoulder. She takes the flash drive and kills the Dutchman before leaving. However, Jericho manages to shoot and kill her before she can exit the room. Jericho takes possession of the flash drive and rushes out to find a car to go after Jill and Emma. He speeds to an airfield where Heimdall is waiting to exchange the program on the flash drive for Billy's family. Wells radios Jericho, warning him not to go to the airfield as Jill and Emma's lives are at risk, but Jericho refuses to listen. Upon arrival at the airfield, Jericho makes his way through a series of violent confrontations and finally reaches Heimdall, who is holding a gun to Emma's head, demanding the flash drive in exchange for her life. Before Jericho can make a move, Heimdall shoots him and escapes on his plane. Emma is safely reunited with her mother, but Jill is distraught and believes that Jericho won't survive his wounds. Moments later, Wells and other CIA agents arrive at the scene and call for an ambulance. Wells is mad at Jericho for what he did. However, Jericho explains he had the Dutchman modify the wormhole's programming so that any missile fired would return to Heimdall's location. True to his words, Heimdall's aircraft explodes a few minutes later, destroying both him and the wormhole. After some time, we see Jericho returning to the beach he wanted to return to. Emma and Jill join him, while Wells and Dr. Frank watch from a short distance. Emma and Jill are fully aware that Billy is still alive in Jericho's mind. The movie concludes with Wells informing Dr. Frank that he is going to hire Jericho. Dr. Frank wonders if it's a good decision, but Wells believes that he couldn't have made a better choice. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos.